Marina, thank you for being here.
It's an absolute
Welcome.
pleasure.
And you are the current head of Oxford High School, Vice President of the Girls' Schools Association, Governor of the Tyndale Community School and Trustee of the Independent School Council. Is that correct? Not currently.
Almost. So I was Vice President of GSA until August. So I am now completely free.
So you've done your term.
Absolutely right.
Congrats.
Loved it. But there's something about girls' education, I think, which cuts through me like rock. So it doesn't really matter about the title.
Okay. So you're all about girls' education.
All about girls' education.
Right, we'll get into it. And, you know, I've got a few notes, but who cares about the notes? I want to understand.
Let it roll.
So we started talking, obviously, before we started recording, but just in a nutshell, who are you and what's made you the person that you are today?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I am head of Oxford High School. I'm a mother of 3 daughters. That's really important to me. I'm a child that was born in India, grew up in Singapore, went to Tanglin in Singapore, and then lived in North Borneo and was put on a plane together with my brother at the age of 10 and 7 to go back to England.
You were 7.
I was 10. My brother was 7.
Oh, that's young.
I didn't know what tights were, had no idea what hot tea with milk was. And it was really odd because I really missed being barefoot. I really missed the freedom that I'd had abroad. But I also think that's given me a unique perspective, if you like, because it's made me acutely conscious of the power of the outsider, of the ability to be somebody who fits in, who appears to have all the trappings, and yet also tries to be, because we're all striving, right? None of us have ever reached there, strives also to be inclusive and warm to everybody.
I think what you're alluding to is a bit of perspective, right? So, yeah, I mean, my children have been born and brought up outside of the UK and then went to the UK. And then there's this whole body of work that they call like TCK, right? Third culture kids.
Yes.
I find that very, very interesting. And so I suppose you are a third culture kid.
An early one.
Yeah.
An early one, if
we
you
don't need
like.
to mention that.
Yeah, thank you for that. But isn't it interesting? Because my children were too. And I don't know if you were, but now I've got, so my 3 daughters, 2 of them in Sydney and 1 in Canada. Can I just stipulate here, it is nothing to do with my mothering skills. Right. I feel that they were given the confidence to be able to go and travel.
You set them free, right?
Exactly. And that's really the essence, isn't it, of what we're trying to do?
I think so. You know, obviously, you know, we work with parents of very young children, actually, and teenagers. But, you know, thinking about, well, myself, I certainly fled far, far away and strayed and didn't do what I was expected to do. But I think it all worked out all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. But, yeah, no, as parents, we need to... We talk a lot. I mean, I've done a lot of these podcasts. Some of the people that you know have sat in your seat, and we talk about the skills and building their character and supporting them to become confident and independent and yes, intelligent and but all of those things, kind and resilient, and so that they can go off and do whatever it is they want to do, wherever that may be, Sydney or wherever.
I think that's spot on. But I would add that there's also a hint of rebellion as well. I think that's really important. We all know about the resilience and confidence, and of course those are important. But I also think there's something, particularly in the education of young people now, it's so hard to get a job when you're a graduate, things like that. I think the power of tenacity and persistence, and actually you say that I'm not the right person for this job because I've been sifted through by AI, but actually I'm going to show you that I am. And that sense, I think, in girls' education as well, which I think the past is all about compliance and compliance. And I think now it's sort of, no, let me be who I want to be. Certainly that's at the essence, I think,
to
of
a
the
degree.
future.
Right.
Within reason, right?
But what is reason? I mean...
Yeah. And has it defined? And we can go into all those things, but...
We could, but I mean, that's why it's so complicated to be a parent today. And I'm sure it's complicated to be a teenager. Obviously, I don't know. What were your teenage years like?
Well, it's really interesting. My teenage years were really binary because on the one hand, I was at boarding school in England. And then the next time I got on a I don't know, 30-hour flight, which is what it was then, and then went to the jungle in Saba. So I took 2 flights. I remember the Flock of Friendship, and I remember, isn't it funny how some memories, I remember a man had a crate of chickens on the flight, and they all got loose on the flight, you know? And then grew up in the middle of the jungle in North Borneo. So it was completely binary, because at school I was surrounded by people, and at home in Tawau, I wasn't surrounded by anybody at all. It was an extraordinary time. So I read. I read all day, every day. And I think that's really what gave me my passion for English, for words, for language, for poetry.
Yeah.
It was as a result of that Borneo education. And when we talked about perspective earlier, Ruth, you're spot on. Because at the time I thought, poor me, I'm not going to all these parties. I remember being invited to something called Feathers and told about something called Feather. I thought it was some kind of satanic ritual. I had no idea it was this big dance in London. And actually it gave me a sense of that love for poetry, for the books of Enid Blyton. I lived boarding school, but I didn't, if that makes sense. Extraordinary times.
Were you not sort of similar to some of the other boarders in the school? Did they not have similar experiences? So you had that, common ground, if you like.
All the boarders then were pretty much in the UK.
Okay, interesting.
It was very, very different to now.
Do you mind which school was that?
It was a place called Cobham Hall in Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you felt, but isn't that also part of like character building and adaptability? We sometimes talk about that, children or teenagers or young people can be dropped into any situation and they can cope. They have coping skills and they can pull out the different, communication skills or whatever skills that they need to be able to survive and thrive in that situation. So,
I think it's so important. And I think it's important for everybody, whether you're male or female. But I think particularly when educating women, you are educating women for life. You're not just educating for 3 years at university, because so many women now, the research demonstrates, GDST research demonstrates, that women don't just want a linear career. And the reason I'm talking about women is not to shut out men. I'm just an expert on women. And they want a portfolio career. They want to start their own business. They want to be able, if they're lucky enough to have children, they want to be able to have children at the same time. And they don't necessarily want to compromise on either of those. And to be honest, why should they? Because both are so enriching, infuriating too, but enriching.
Is that still an idea that you almost need to champion? To me, that seems so basic and obvious. I mean, I have a daughter, but I also have a son. But is that still an idea that you need to sort of champion, that some people aren't on board with that?
I think the idea of a linear career, I think now we are focusing so much on vocational subjects, particularly at university. Look at the way geography has got into the top 10, whereas English literature, something very close to my heart, has dropped out. And I think there's a real focus now on the transactional value of both qualifications at university and, to a certain extent, with the rise of VAT for independent schools as well, particularly in the UK. I think things are becoming more transactional. I think people are looking at value for money, and there's been a lot of speculation about that. And I think as your podcast goes out to international parents, there will be a lot of what actually am I getting for this? Because it's a huge investment, isn't it?
Indeed.
Let's take a quick break to talk about something that can make all the difference for your child's educational journey. I'm thrilled to share that this episode is sponsored by Top Schools, your trusted partner in navigating the complex world of school applications. If you're aiming for a top independent school in the UK, Top Schools offers personalised consulting to ensure your child finds the very best fit with a guaranteed outcome. From identifying those best fit schools to crafting standout applications to invigilating the entrance exams, the expert team is with you every step of the way. Ready to take control of your child's future? Visit topschoolsadmissions.com or click the link in the show notes to learn more and book a consultation today. Use the code DESTINATION for 20% off. That code is DESTINATION for 20% off personalised support for entry into a top independent boarding school in the UK. Now, back to our conversation.
VAT is something that we've not talked about at all on this podcast.
Well, we don't need to now, but I just think it's on people's minds, isn't it?
It still is, absolutely. What do you think, obviously, so you described a very interesting childhood. Just take us a few steps to where you are now. Then what happened after you finished school?
So I joined, left school, went to Oxford, went to Somerville College in Oxford, which at the time was all girls.
To read English?
To read English, that's right, back to Anglo-Saxon, and fell in love with T.S. Eliot. Graduated from Oxford, went into advertising. So went into advertising for a number of years, met and married my first husband. I like to count them down. My first husband, and we moved to Miami. And then I worked for Blockbuster. I became their manager of merchandising across the US.
For the younger listeners.
That's so rude. Yes. Blockbuster was a Huizenga franchise, which was video
I have happy
rental.
memories of Saturdays,
isn't it?
trekking down to Blockbusters to take out a video VHS cassette to watch a movie.
And they were blue and yellow branding. They were bright blue and yellow
They went
stripes,
bust in the end, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They did. They didn't see the advent of streaming services. Lesson for all of us, I think, don't you? We then moved to Paris. I had my 3 children. So I had 3 children under 2. Olivia, who is 2, and then twins, identical twins, Charlotte and Emma, all their names taken from English literature. And I ran a charity in Paris for over 1,000 women there, which was based on the National Childbirth Trust in England, which is very much for new mothers and toddler groups. So that was over 1,000 women there. And then we moved to Hong Kong, and I was looking around for something to do. I couldn't work. So I became a riding instructor.
Horse riding?
Yes.
Yep.
And then
As you do.
And then when my first marriage split up, I decided that with my love of English, I would go back to university and be a teacher. I'd loved the teaching from the riding teacher, but yeah. So I went to Hong Kong U and trained to be a teacher, graduated top of my year, very proud of that. And then started teaching in Hong Kong. And then we moved back to the UK, where I was in a state school for 10 years, boys' state school, so single sex again, interestingly.
Oh, are there any of those left now?
I don't know, to be honest, Ruth, but and it was really interesting. I found it really hard. Talk about perseverance. Dropped in the middle of this South London State School, but it gave me an absolute passion for good teaching and great teaching. Great classrooms change lives. Great teachers change lives. They completely transform the opportunities of students. And I take that with me wherever I go. So then transferred to Heathfield, which was a small boarding school at Ascot. Deputy head, became head there, and then loved the rebellion, the sense of spirit that great girls have. And then Oxford High called me, and the GDST as the voice for women's education called me.
And that was about 4.5 years ago.
It was 4.5 years ago, that's right. So I transferred in the middle of COVID.
Oh, fun.
Fun, getting to know a school online.
Yeah.
So, but still here now.
You said that when you went to that state boys' school, it was tough, and you said you cried. I mean, what did you see in that state school that was different to your own experience of being at school that surprised you?
I think it was really interesting because actually there were so many similarities. A lot of people say to me, you've gone from the state school, and actually it was later. So you've gone from this state school to this small boarding school. Why they must be very different. And actually they're not necessarily, because it's all about aspiration. It's all about the art of the possible. I think a great teacher doesn't just teach information. They actually tell you and show every child in that class. They give them a glimpse of what they could be, of what they could do. And I think that really strong sense of, I believe you can do this. I know you find it hard, but I want you to know I'm on your side. I want you to know that even though I put you in detention because you haven't done the work, I'm on your side because I know you can be better than you can.
I suppose what you're getting at, I mean, 100%. A good teacher is gold dust, right? But in a state school, even good or excellent teachers, would they be able to be as good or as excellent as they have the capacity to be because of the, the conditions or the students or the parents or resources or I don't know.
I think that's a bit like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I think you can be amazing wherever you are, can't you? So you may not be able to reach the apotheosis. You may not be teaching at a very, very high level, for example, but that doesn't mean that you're not changing lives, I think. And I think any teacher with absolute commitment, passion and enthusiasm for their subject, as well as absolutely rigid boundaries, is really good in any setting. You probably just turn the volume down on the boundaries a bit and you up the volume perhaps. But I think sometimes some state school classrooms and state schools now are really, really good as well. They just don't necessarily have the resource. They've got bigger classes and there's such a wide range of abilities in classes. I think part of the excitement in the independent sector is, first of all, the independence. You can tailor your curriculum to the students within it, but also the excitement of learning with other people who really want to learn.
I was going to ask, how do you know what state schools are like these days? I suppose you've answered that. There's a huge variety. I often hear leaders in the community politicians who say, well, I wouldn't send my child to an independent school under any circumstances. And, I just wonder if parents have the choice, and lots of the parents who are listening and we had a choice. Would you send your child to state school today? The right one?
So I think I am going to dodge your question, but I'm not going to dodge it because ultimately it's about the right fit for the student. And it all depends on what your child is like. And I think that's the same for whatever school you send them. I've seen all kinds of different children and parents. Let me just say this to you. It is so important that you go back and get under the skin of a school as much as you can. I always say to my parents that they want to come back 5 times, 8 times, 10 times. It's such an important decision. They need to know. They really need to get an idea of how it matches up to their child.
Yeah, it was a stupid question in hindsight, but I know I totally agree with you.
No, it wasn't a stupid question at all. It was a really good one. I just twisted it around to make my amends.
Well, no, let's stick with that then, because what I do is supporting parents to find the fit. So we have a whole system which is finding the fit. And you don't know what we do or how we do that. But what would you do if you're advising parents? And I know that you've got an interest in advising parents because it is such a crucial decision. And it's not as easy as it sounds, right? It sounds It's easy to say, but actually really hard to do. So advice for parents: they're starting off, they're sort of mildly curious or quite curious about UK independent schools. And let's stick with girls for now because that's what you know. Where do they start?
With their class teacher, with the class teacher of their child. So I would sit down with my class teacher. I know how busy they are, but I would sit down and say, what kind of person is my child in a classroom? What kind of learner are they? What do they, because the presentation of your child at home is actually quite different to a classroom. And you can have children who are, well, I just remember friends of mine with sons who just talked about sons coming through the door and all they saw was them going to the fridge and then going upstairs. So, but I think it's really, really important to find out what kind of learner your child is in the classroom. Are they somebody who likes to put their hand up? Are they a fast learner? Or are they somebody who likes to watch others first and then get involved and actually go into greater detail? Are they somebody who gets really fixated, for example, on prime numbers? Or do they have a love of languages? Do they write in their spare time? Are they confident in the classroom? Or are they actually really quite shy and have to be prompted by the teacher? Because those kind of things, finding out first of all about your child as a learner and then what they're really good at, it is so important as a starting place to find out what your child is really good at. The number of people who consider a school, for example, and their daughter is really good at swimming, but the school doesn't have a swimming pool. And it's a facetious example. But let's start with that fit, and then it proceeds from that. Then a long list, and I would come to somewhere like you because you have a really good insight, and you don't just take what people like me say. You actually delve below, and then you've got to visit. You've got to visit on a normal school day, not the flash bang whiz day, the normal school day.
So not the open day.
Do the open day
and then go again. If you like what you see at the open day, and I advise parents to stay low profile, just kind of do a lot of observation. This is your chance to see if you want to go back and visit in a small group or an individual tour. Yeah.
Spot on. Listen to the head. If you like the head, that's great. But actually, schools are made in classrooms and they're made for your child with the other people in the school. So kindness is a sine qua non. You've got to have that in the school. And then talk to the children. If they're anything like, have a look at them. Are they touring you and actually they've got a phone in their pocket that keeps buzzing? Or are they talking relentlessly about one thing? I love this, I once had to rescue parents on a tour. They come in at about 11 o'clock on a normal school day, and I had to rescue them at 1:30 when they were on their 35th classroom, I think, because the girls were so energised about showing them. So I had to rescue them at that point. So it's fun.
So much of what you say is true. I was going to ask you, I mean, kindness, I want to come back to that. This morning, I had a dad actually, who gave me a bit of a hard time when I was suggesting that he goes to visit a bunch of schools. He was hoping for a shortcut, really hoping that I would just cut through the noise. And yes, to a certain extent, we're not going to advise you to visit schools that we think aren't a good fit, but there is absolutely no substitute for visiting the school, is there?
No, absolutely none. And even for us, I mean, we're one of 26 schools, but I wouldn't say come to Oxford High GDST and then go to another GDST school and just assume by saying Oxford, you're saying that. Every school has its own mini culture, its mini feel. And also, I think education is more than just what happens in a classroom. I think it's about values. I think it's about character. I think it's about creating young people.
But all of the schools say that they do all of that. Don't
yeah,
they?
That's quite interesting too. Yes, but then look for what they really do. You know, there's a very good article in the Harvard Business Review, which is 9 lessons to a new CEO, and one of those is your actions speak louder than your words. So, if I can give you an example, so if you say, I'm going to talk about my school here, but at Oxford High, when I came in, there was a dress code for sixth form. But we say this is a place to be authentically yourself and to be fearless and to be bold and to be confident. So I eradicated the dress code, because why are we talking, Ruth, to young women about what they wear and the earrings they've got, as opposed to the ideas they've got for changing the world or what they want to do with their lives?
So are they allowed to wear whatever they like to wear?
Why not? They're 17, 18. They're not going to turn up to an interview in a bikini. What are we so afraid of? Unleashing the power of young women.
So since you incorporated that policy, you've never had a girl in your office for inappropriate dress?
I would never put a girl in my office for inappropriate
or have words
dress.
with her.
What a waste of time. I don't want these teachers who are, many of them have masters, or PhDs. I don't want them wasting their time talking to women about what colour they dye their hair. That doesn't make them a better or worse person, does it?
So they're allowed to dye their hair?
Yeah. I
went to a girls' school, a bit like, not like yours. Like we had to, I tried to dye my hair, wasn't allowed. I showed up for my high school graduation as a goth. Like I went all out goth, just to show them that I was leaving, and then I could. But no, we had no earrings, outlandish hairstyles, no highlights, never mind pink or blue. No, yeah, I don't know. And I guess there are still schools that do that, right?
I don't know
There
is the
are.
answer, but I'm sure. But I also think the nature of girls' education has changed.
Yeah, I'm sure it has, of course, for the positive. But I mean, so my daughter, for example, she's not long left school, and they were talking about how they used to hike up their skirts to, too short and too much makeup and too much jewellery, and that this is the girls themselves saying that. When in their school, it was actually a breach of the dress code, but it wasn't really enforced. But so you allowed the girls to do, but do they then police themselves in a sense? They're dressing sensibly.
What I find really interesting is when you take away the boundary,
Yes,
actually it doesn't become a thing.
right.
So in years 7 to 11, we do have a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And children, they can wear either their straight school uniform or they can wear sports kit.
Mm.
But I'm not going to police them about whether they've got sports that day or not. It's about being comfortable, isn't it?
Mm.
And my school is very much about enriching the mind. What are we teaching young women if we focus on the body?
Mm.
They have enough of those they have enough of those messages externally already. I think we need to show them a way beyond that.
Interesting. I want to come back to something you said earlier about, for parents to be able to see through the, I think I called it corporate shiny stuff or something earlier. To be kind, right?
Yes.
How do parents look for kindness? How does that show up on a visit, for example?
It's such a good question. I think there are two, and I would say as part of quite a high-performing girls' school, I think there are two branches to this. I think the first one is being kind to others. Do they open the door? Are they in groups? In my school, people don't go into the dining room alone. So if there's somebody sitting on their own, other girls will get up and walk over to them. You can see that. You can see girls in the way they talk to one another and the way they talk to the staff. My girls run down corridors. I love that. I understand that that's not the same as in others, but can they be themselves? Yes. So I think seeing those little things are really important. But I think the other side of that is being kind to yourself, about recognizing that not getting 99% in every test doesn't mean you're a failure. That actually failing a test is just a stepping stone to the next one, that stumbling in school is really safe and that you need to get back up again. One of the things I say to parents when they first come in, and these are year 6 parents, right? So they're nervous enough about year 7. And I say, your daughter, because we allow phones in reception, your daughter at some point will call you during her school career and she will say, I've got a detention because I didn't bring in my X. Right. And you will be tempted to get in the car and drive to her and bring it. And I am saying to you now, don't do that. Because when your daughter has an opportunity to present at the UN, she will never forget her speech because of that first attention. And that idea of independence, of being able to rely on yourself, I think is probably the ultimate kindness.
I imagine this takes up a reasonable amount of your time, sort of like talking to the parents and almost fending them off, because there is such a culture nowadays, isn't there, as parents to, I think we've called it or the snowflake generation, or something like mollycoddling them. And I've been guilty of this myself as well. But, when you send them to a boarding school, your school is day and boarding, is it?
Just day.
Oh, it's just a day
We're here
school.
to launch homestay. So it's quite different.
Okay,
but having run a boarding school, it's very much.
But even as a day school, like, let them get on with it and reap. I think one of my mum used to say to me, obviously I'm going back a bit, but something about reap what you sow. But you have to suffer the consequences of your actions.
Yes, you do.
And I kind of think that's been forgotten a little bit.
I also think there's something, isn't there, about a 20-minute detention really isn't the end of the world.
No, of course it's not.
And it's a school. We're all learning. Yeah. So, but back to your kindness point, I think first of all, on the open day, it has to come from the top. It absolutely has to come from the top. And then you triangulate, don't you? So you go to the teachers and say, what are the 3 top things that are really important in this school? And then you talk to the children and you say, so what are the top 3 things at this school? And then see if the top 3 things that the head says is,
look for
is
consistency.
everywhere.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like vision and mission stuff that doesn't always filter through. That there's a lot of that language that is on the website, it's in the prospectus, but you're not necessarily going to hear that or see that in context in a classroom. Yeah.
And I always think, talking to a current parent, ask the school to put you in touch with
multiple
a
current parents.
Yes.
To get, it's funny, again, that came up today when I was talking with families. There are certain schools that we support children to move out of quite regularly, and then there are other schools that just where students don't leave unless they're moving to a different country or in rare situations.
That's such an accolade, isn't it?
I think that's after however many years of doing this, I think it's a really good yardstick. You don't.
I also think on parents, I think you've got to be careful, because I think I don't want to denigrate the dinner party gossip kind of thing, or actually my child's really happy. I think you have to focus in on your child. And when people say to me, but X is really happy, I say, but they're not your child. You have to focus in on yours, because otherwise, there is nothing worse than having an unhappy child. Nothing. And unhappy is different. Unhappy at a fundamental level is different to slightly annoyed sometimes because they've got a detention or they're not keeping up. They're finding it hard to keep up with their work or something. That's all. But in the main, they're happy.
Right.
And I think we've got to be careful with the use of the word happy as well, because I think we can't be happy all the time. What great schools give is a sense to the individual, I think, that you're not happy all the time, but you know how to manage it. And you've got a group of friends that will help you and support you when you're going through tough times.
Yeah.
Because that's a life lesson, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess happy... It is the word. We went to a school the other day and they surveyed 200 parents in the room. Like, what are the 3 things that you're looking for in a school? They did a word cloud, the ones that and happy was front and center, as I predicted. And because parents do say that all the time. But when I think, what does that mean to me? I guess it means sort of some sort of contentedness.
Yes.
It doesn't mean like deliriously, like no problems, every day is a breeze. No, I don't think that's what we mean. I love this. So you are speaking my language. There's nothing that you've said that I don't 100% absolutely agree with. So to the point of the dinner party, I think you said talk. I sometimes say dinner party gossip. A lot of parents, most parents will big up the school that their child is in.
Yes.
Like they want bragging rights, right? It may be the absolute wrong school. Their child may be quite unhappy or miserable, but they're not going to admit it. So I say speak to multiple parents. And I sometimes say speak to parents who have left that school, if it's a school where children tend to move on. Speak to them about why they left. Speak to them about why they joined, and however many years on, currently, were your expectations met? And yes, I speak to quite a few different parents to get some sort of 360 eval. But it's not easy, isn't it? And again, a guy said to me today that he works in tech, and he's like, I can just do. And there's a couple of AI apps that are trying to sort this out at the moment. Like we can just put some algorithms together and let it do its work, and it's going to tell you which school is the right school for your child. And I just, do you think we'll ever get there?
So I went to, I'm part of this amazing group which is called AI for Educators at Oxford University, and they had a convening, I love the word convening, a convening a couple of weeks ago at Oxford, and they flew in educators from all over the world to present on AI. And there was this wonderful piece which was about the importance. AI is brilliant for one-to-one. So one-to-one teaching, one-to-one, that is brilliant for intervening and being able to go at one person's pace. However, and this does answer your question, I promise, it doesn't capture the connectivity and the intervention and the interaction in a classroom. So when two girls in a classroom sort of raise their eyebrows at each other or look at each other, and I think that's such a good example because it can't, the great thing about AI, and I think it's really exciting, really important for our children to harness the power of it. But the great thing about AI is that it throws into sharp relief what being human really is. And I think the power of humanity's connectivity is about the essence of love and value and being supported and encouraged and empowered to be yourself. And I think that's what places and people like you do, because that's what you're doing with parents. You are empowering them to make the right decisions. AI can't do that.
Well, there is an argument that AI will be able to develop emotions, but currently I say that choosing a school for your child is, you've done the groundwork, you've done your research, you've visited a bunch of schools, so you have some sort of logical start. Now, then you lay your emotions on top of that, and the decision is an emotional decision, I feel. So until AI can get to the point where you're going to say,
I think that's really important. I was just going to interject, because the number of times I have heard people say, just walk into a school and you'll know whether it's right or not for your child. It cannot be a purely emotional decision. Just because you've walked into an amazingly traditional building, which is absolutely splendiferous, does not mean that fundamentally they've got the coaches and the teachers and the subject that is right for your child. It has to be a blend of logic and rational as well as the emotional. You need to have both in order to make really the right, a good decision. And I think it's important at this point, Ruth, to say a good decision. Because I think we as parents, and I talk for myself here, beat ourselves up about the choice and what we've done and where my child's going. And the most important thing is to keep focused on your child, because even there are people who make loads and loads of research and they go in and maybe there is something not quite right and you have to move. And I think it's really, really important that you work with people and it's a long-standing thing.
what do you think about letting your child choose? Maybe like once you've got your long list and then maybe the short list, and then letting your child, who is at least 13 years old, you're raising your eyebrows at me. Well, I'm not saying I do have parents. No. I do work with parents of very young children. They say, well, I think the school that your children went to when they were in Hong Kong, they go into that school and they say, oh, we like the fluffy bunny. Well, of course they like the fluffy bunny.
Yes.
That's why they have the fluffy bunny. But letting your 2-year-old choose might not be the best idea. But 13, 14, 15?
I love this, because I say exactly the same. I say, do not let your child choose, particularly when they're younger, because it'll be the school with the chocolate biscuits, and it's all about resisting the chocolate biscuits. I think there is if you are genuinely happy and satisfied with 3 different schools or 2 different schools, and you would be really happy for your child to go to either one, I think there is absolutely no harm in your child having some agency over that decision. I actually think it's trickier later on, because I think there are other factors coming into play. And I think as parents and adults, sometimes we have to be mindful of other factors that our teenagers perhaps aren't necessarily focused on.
Such as?
Well, for me, it's girls versus co-ed, isn't it?
Okay.
Because A-level and 6th form is all about 18 months for you to make the most important decision of your life. And I'm a very, very strong believer that it's only 5 terms. And it needs to be, you've got plenty of time to go wider, to have more exposure to things later on. But I think...
So you're saying remove the distractions?
Do you know what? It's
from
not,
the classroom.
I hate the fact about that distraction bit. I think it's more about, you don't have to be on show. Let's just get on with the work. Let's not have other things for you to think about.
I guess what you're alluding to, I mean, being a female teenager today is complicated, I'm sure. I've only seen it from the parent point of view. So what sort of things, like what are the issues that come up in school that you're discussing with the girls, or issues where maybe got some stories about complications?
So I think a lot of the issues that girls face are very much the same as everybody. I think our young people are really concerned about climate change. I think our young people, and particularly girls, but I think it's pervasive, are really worried about the very masculine role models that we're seeing in the world at the moment, the rise of misogyny online, the terrifying fact, I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but that the belief that girls should have equal rights is actually going down amongst young men rather than up. I think these are really terrifying things. And I think what happens in a girls' school, and I find this really ironic, because we are defined by the fact we are a girls' school, but actually in a school that is full of girls, your womanhood becomes the least important thing. You don't have to wear a skirt. It's not about what you wear. It's about the fact that I'm Marina. I love English. I also love hockey. I'm a bit of a demon on the stage. Do you know what I mean? It just becomes you. And I think that's really powerful. The other thing is, I think that it's really important to give young people and young women their voice. So in my school, you can start a club if we don't have it at any age, from the age of 10, 8, 4, whatever. If we don't have it, that idea that what you do really matters, and translating your thoughts into actions. Because I think once you stand up for yourselves, you start standing up for others and see, I can do this.
But do you think that's different for girls and boys? Isn't that the same?
I genuinely don't know, because I'm not the head of a boys' school. So but in my experience, when I have seen teams, for example, so we had a robotics competition at Oxford High. We had a robotics competition at Oxford High. We had 10 teams there. 9 teams were co-educational. 1 team was all girls. No marks for whom. The other teams, it was the boys who were building the robots, and it was the boys who were programming them. The girls were doing the marketing for the teams, choosing the team names, doing the scores. It was the only team where the girls were building the robots, they were doing the programming, and then going round to every other team asking them if they wanted help, was, you guessed it, Oxford High. And I think there is something there, whether it's societal. I don't believe for an instant that any of those other teams thought, well, the girls are going to do this or the boys are going to do that. I think probably the girls elected to do that. But that doesn't exist with me.
Tell me a bit more about your school, because I have the sense that it's actually a highly selective academic school. Is it?
It's certainly selective. It's certainly selective. But I think in this world that we're in, so in the primary section, so our students are all the way from 4 up to 19. It's lovely seeing them develop in that sense. It is selective, but I think in this age as well, we're really, really mindful of the different backgrounds that people come in to. I have a really large amount of bursaries and scholarships to give away. I actually work with an organisation in Oxford where I present to all kinds of people, because I'm very similar to you. I reject this sort of corporate presentation of independent schools. I think every single girl who wants to go to an independent school, or a boy, should have that opportunity. So I present in Oxford. We do a whole day which is called Demystifying Independent Schools. I'm not talking about my school here, but I think it's really important. And that is also why I'm the governor of a primary school.
I guess most schools don't have the luxury. I mean, how is that funded? How are all those bursaries funded?
Well, I'm lucky enough to be one of 26 schools, and it's absolutely central to our mission is to make sure that that all those girls who want to come to a GDST school can. And it's part of our fundraising mission. Oxford High is 150 this year, and part of our central mission is to raise 150,000 for a bursary. But you can do it in any way you like. So 10O, I'm going to give them a shout out. 10O are raising 150 items of food for the local food bank. And Isabel in year 10 has just run 150 kilometres sponsored. So you know what? You can do whatever you want as long as you demonstrate that you're going to do something to change the world, not just put a heart on social media.
So your girls are actually actively involved in fundraising.
Completely. It's one of the most outward. Every single tutor group in our school is going to do 150 hours of community service this year.
Yeah. I mean, it's just become an awful lot more expensive to run a school, though. Has that had an impact on the number of bursaries that you can offer?
Not. It's always connected. It's always connected to the number of students. So, it's always connected to the number of students we have. So the percentage is still the same.
I heard a human rights lawyer this morning say that he'd like to shut down all of the independent schools across the entire country. And there's still very much, I didn't get into why. There's still very much this divide, isn't there, in normal conversation in the UK. I feel that obviously 6% of British children go to independent school, isn't it? 6-7%. So
it's 7% at secondary, I think, and then at sixth form it goes to somewhere between 12 and 15%.
And they're predicting that that's going to drop off quite substantially next year because people kept their children in for 1 or 2 years, or the school covered it for 1 or 2 years until it was the right time for them to withdraw. So it's a really tiny proportion of British students that go to independent schools. And so within polite society, if you like, within the UK, it's rare to sit and say, I've got my child in an independent school. Most people don't. And so there's still this divide. There's still a taboo, isn't there? Either way, I'm not sure which one.
I think this is one of the greatest threats that we face. And that is the binary presentation of so many issues. We are losing. It's either become independent school evil, state school good. Actually, the reality is much more complex than that. And it's the same in so many different arguments. We've become reduced, haven't we, to bite-sized comments and opinions. And I think one of the things that we have to do is working with colleagues, and because they're all children. I have spent as much time in the independent sector as the state sector. The issues are the same.
Yes.
Leaders are the same. We are all trying to do the best for the children we have. And what we have that unites us is so much stronger than that which divides us. And I'm really tired of having the 94% or 93, whatever it is, pitted against the 6%. They are all children.
My children have just started university, first year and second year, and on campus during Freshers' Week, there's the 94% club. And I think most universities have one. And my children, and I said, what's that? And they explained to me what that is. This is the state school children. And maybe some universities have got maybe a slightly skewed number of private school kids, and then they all hang out in the same hall, and that there is a divide. But what's the solution?
The solution is that we have to make sure our children, all our children, are globally and socially connected. That's what we've got to do. There is absolutely no space for bubbles anymore. It's all about getting them out. If I can use, so my youngest daughter, Emma, she will kill me. My youngest daughter, Emma, works one day.
Not her real name.
It is?
Carry on.
Well,
okay.
No. I'm very happy with that. Named after my favourite heroine in Jane Austen. So my daughter Emma, based in Montreal, works one day a week in a cafe, and 6 days a week she's online, globally connecting with people all over the world, building apps. That is the world. Nobody could give a stuff whether she went to an independent school. It's just whether she's good at her job. We have to focus. We have to focus on making sure our children, whatever kind of school they went to, are able to talk to anyone, work with anyone, and have an understanding of how to make people inclusive, how to make inclusive and diverse environments, because we all know that makes businesses much better in the future. Enough of this binary opinion making.
Well, it's a form of intolerance, isn't it?
Yes, completely.
Isn't it one of the core characteristics, I would have thought, that we want to teach our children character, and tolerance must be key in there. Yet we are meeting intolerant people every day.
I think that, and we have to get underneath the intolerance, because I think in some ways, we're our own worst enemy. We've got to stop showing these magnificent facilities in a way, and we've got to actually start thinking about, what do our children do? What are they doing to demonstrate character? I know what I do. I know what my school does. It's a modern school right in the middle of Oxford. It's really locally and centrally connected. And it's not locally and centrally connected because I've got buses coming in. I am locally and centrally connected because my children go out and they work in local schools, and they contribute to the offers in other schools. That's connection. That's human. That's absolutely vital to our future. But the other side, Ruth, if I can just pick this up, I think there's this information understanding. We've talked a little bit about AI, and I think it's really important. One of the things I am really committed to is making sure that our students engage in hearing different views. I think that is really important, and engaging in different opinions. One of the things I do is I teach a Year 7 critical analysis social discourse unit before Year 7s get their phones, which is all about, what does social media want me to do? What is the person sharing this post actually want me to do with it? And is this image AI altered? How can I tell? How can I make it clear that it is? And why am I getting these things? And what does what I choose bring more of? Because I think that is part of making sure that our young people can see through some of this binary opinion and actually argue it with nuance and finesse and argument.
Brilliantly put. Absolutely, totally
I don't
agree.
know about that, but
No,
thank you.
yeah, it's such a challenge that we have as parents. I think we're running out of time. I do want to ask you if we could talk for hours. I guess you've touched on it, but obviously, I presume you're not planning on retiring anytime soon. So let's take the next 5 years. What do you want to see happening? How do you want to see your school and all schools potentially evolving over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? What are the issues? And
I think the AI is really interesting. I think there are two responses to that. And there's been a very strong trend. I don't know if it's the same here, but certainly in the UK, a very strong trend of people moving away from tech and tech devices. I'm the opposite, I'm afraid. So I think it's really important to stop access to very young children about tech devices. I'm absolutely on that. But I think when children get to probably 15, 16, and certainly through the age of senior school, what we've got to do is we must have, the internet is dominated, I'm afraid, by pale, stale research. We need to make sure that AI has the voices of women at its heart, and that all our children manage to harness it. So, for example, we ask our children when they write any kind of extended research, if they use AI, they have to reference it. It's absolutely fine to use it, as long as it doesn't take the struggle away. So it's fine to use it as part of your essay, or to say, right, how can I make this essay better? But you've got to demonstrate, you've got to actually hand that in. So it's that idea of taking the guilt away almost. So I think that's going to be a major part.
No, it's just that all of these new, tech, obviously the definition is that there's new things that we have to deal with from time to time. And we actually had brunch with a professor of AI, yesterday, and a lot of the same issues. But teachers, teachers are I guess everyone doesn't know what they don't know, right? They're just struggling to know that, but they're experimenting on children in classrooms every day, and teachers are making mistakes. But I guess that's just what we have to go through, right?
It's a school.
Yeah.
We're all learning, aren't we? And
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I heard something the other day which I really liked. It was about taking the sting out of getting things wrong. And it was saying, let's experiment. Well, let's experiment with AI as long as there are very secure boundaries about what kind of AI, the platforms you're using, the platforms you're accessing. But then it's a bit like school, isn't it? You push in the boundaries and then you set people free.
Yeah.
And let's let them lead. What are we afraid of?
You were going to say there was another issue that you were going to bring up?
Completely gone.
Yeah. AI and over the next 5 to 10 years in
over
schools.
the next 5 to 10 years, I think we have to look at the voices of the young. I think the issues at the moment are, I think our young people, they are anxious. And I think they're anxious globally. They're anxious globally about things like climate change, about the wars in the world, about Afghan women, for example, who have fewer rights than cats, they are concerned about that. And I think our governments and our political structures really have to start listening to young people because they have the best interests of the world at heart. And I think it's time to set their voices free.
It's been a fascinating conversation, Marina. Is there a question that I haven't asked you that you wish I had asked you?
I think the only thing I would say, if you're a parent listening to this and you are thinking about the right school for your child, I think go and see all kinds of different schools. I think it's really important, not just those that you think are right or that were right when you were a child or that your parents perhaps thought they were right. Schools change. They change with heads. The last cohort, particularly with results, the last cohort started a school 7 years ago, which is very different. If you're looking at a school, go and see it now. Go and see it, feel it, love it. And I hope your child is really contented there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marina. It's been so fascinating to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I've loved it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If today's episode sparked questions or if you're ready for support with UK boarding school admissions, we're here to help. Reach out to us at www.topschoolsadmissions.com or follow the link in the show notes. Your child's exceptional UK boarding school educational journey starts with a conversation, so let's have a chat.